As the 2024 election approaches, Donald Trump and his henchmen have refused to commit to peacefully accepting the results should he lose to Vice President Kamala Harris. Moreover, Trump continues to defend the January 6th insurrectionists at the Capitol, calling them patriots and claiming he had nothing to do with inciting the riot that unfolded as they tried to stop the official proceeding certifying Biden's victory. All of that was the culmination of a Trump-inspired scheme to use fake electors in key states to upend the election results. Who were these fake electors? How did that scheme unfold? What were the results? Will Trump's supporters try the same tactics again this year? For the answers to those questions, we're turning today to David Moskowitz, a veteran trial lawyer and author of the Fake Elector Playbook, Lessons for the 2024 Election, which analyzes the 2020 fake elector scheme that involves 7 swing states: Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Georgia, New Mexico, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Welcome to our podcast, David. Thanks for sharing your insight with us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Hey, tell us about your book and why you wrote it.
I wrote the book because I became concerned that the same game plan might come into being for the 2024 election. I thought it was time to put it down in one place.
Okay. Who were these fake electors and how many were there and how did they get involved?
The total number in the 7 swing states is 84.
Okay.
However, I distinguish 2 of the states, Pennsylvania and New Mexico, from the other 5.
Okay.
Because in those 2, Pennsylvania and New Mexico, they really aren't, it's not fair to call them fake electors because the document they signed, the voting certificate they signed and filed in the appropriate governmental offices, that voting certificate was not a fraudulent document. The document that was signed in the other 5 states was fraudulent. They are fake electors. They committed a crime. But in Pennsylvania and New Mexico, it was not a crime.
Okay. Now, how is this scheme supposed to work?
It originated with a lawyer, Kenneth Chesebro, who's 62 years old, went to Harvard Law School, actually worked on the Bush-Gore election dispute on the Gore side, and he was a friend of James Troupis. Troupis was the lawyer for the Republican Party in Wisconsin. Initially, the Wisconsin Republican legislators asked if they could take a role in picking the electors in the Electoral College after Trump lost the election there. And the lawyer for the state legislature said, no, you can't. You have no role in this. However, notwithstanding that, Troupis went ahead. He contacted Chesebro. Chesebro is the architect of this strategy, and the strategy was to have an alternate set of electors for Trump, submit the same documents. You have to, under the system, send the documents that are signed by the electors to four different places: the National Archivist, the U.S. Senate, the president judge of the district court, federal district court closest to the Capitol in the state, and the Secretary of State of the state. So the alternate electors signed documents, sent them to the same 4 places. In Pennsylvania, New Mexico, the documents were different than the other 5 states. I can explain why or how that came to be. But in the other 5 states, these were fraudulent documents. It's a crime in each of those 5 states to have filed them. And that was the plan, was to send them to the Senate and have in the Senate a contest over which of the slates of electors should the Congress accept.
Okay.
This actually happened, by the way, in the Nixon-Kennedy election in 1960. And Nixon was sitting in Mike Pence's seat.
Okay.
He was incumbent vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Electoral College met, he had alternate voting certificates in front of him.
Okay.
What happened was it looked like Nixon had won the election in Hawaii, and the Republican electors sent in the voting certificate. But then there was a recount, and in the recount, Kennedy had really won in Hawaii. So Nixon had in front of him two sets of voting certificates, and Nixon, acting as the presiding officer in the Senate, said that the certificate he would accept is the one of the Democratic electors, because by the recount, Kennedy had won and he had lost. So that was what Chesebro had as a historical situation, and he wanted Pence to do the same thing, but do it for the candidate who lost the election,
Right.
not the one who won the election.
Okay.
And when Arizona came up, when they were counting the votes on January 6th, there was an objection made. And when an objection's made, what happens is that the House meets separately and the Senate meets separately, and they decide and come back. What are they going to do in the dispute? Well, when that happened, of course, there was a riot and the count got stopped. But when they came back, the vote was to accept the Arizona Democratic electors.
Okay. Now, the main characters in your book are Chesebro, who you just discussed, and Stephanie Lambert, kind of a mysterious lawyer involved in the conspiracy in multiple states, right? Exactly. Yeah. What did they? I mean, what was her role, and what should happen to them legally? These two people.
Her role was, when she decided to become a Trump lawyerista, if you will. She was a small town lawyer, barely making a living. And I say that because that was her testimony in her third divorce, that she had no money and she was barely getting by.
Okay.
And she seized upon the opportunity to represent the election deniers.
Okay.
Almost overnight, she became a nationwide lawyer and was trying cases in Washington, D.C., in Pennsylvania, and she's a Michigan lawyer.
Okay.
How she got to these places is from this whole Trump model of all the litigation that Trump gets involved in.
Mm-hmm.
She was less involved in the fake electors than Kenneth Chesebro. He was the architect. He was the drafter of the voting certificate that was fraudulent. And in fact, he was there in Wisconsin when they videoed the fake electors meeting to commit the crime. He was in the room. So he's really much more involved in that. But Stephanie Lambert, I thought, was interesting because he was a successful, almost semi-retired lawyer. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of appellate work. She, on the other hand, was the opposite. She was a small town, barely getting by lawyer who suddenly became a national figure. She's now subject to indictment in about 4 or 5 different cases, and she's being sued for millions of dollars over this. So it's a dramatic lesson to young lawyers. I assume that the seduction of representing the former president of the United States and suddenly becoming a national lawyer was too appealing to her. She, like Sidney Powell, they each formed a nonprofit to pay their legal fees. So even had a steady flow of money coming in from her nonprofit.
Okay. So should these folks, end up going to jail, do you think?
I think that she probably will end up in jail.
Do you?
Chesebro's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Chesebro was indicted in Georgia in the Georgia RICO case,
Hmm.
and he was the first one to plead guilty. He saw the advantages of an early plea deal. He pled guilty. He paid a small fine. I think it was $5,000.
Hmm.
He had to write a letter of apology to the state of Georgia, and he had to agree to turn over all his records to the district attorney's office there. He had to agree to appear as a witness in the case when it comes to trial. And most importantly for our story, he agreed that he would cooperate with the prosecutors and the grand juries in the other cases. And in fact, he has been, that we know of, to Nevada, to Wisconsin, to Michigan, and to Arizona to help them. And in each of those states, except Pennsylvania, there have been indictments. He was obviously a key figure in Arizona, for instance, and certainly in Michigan. And in Wisconsin, he's been actually charged in a criminal case for his role there. Okay. He pled guilty in Georgia, but he also has a criminal case waiting for him in Wisconsin.
Oh, so he's going to face some serious penalties too, I would suspect.
Yeah, he was already sued in Wisconsin because of the 5 states which have fake electors, they haven't been prosecuted in Wisconsin. What happened in Wisconsin is that 2 of the valid electors, 2 of the duly elected electors, sued the fake electors and Troopus, who I mentioned, and Chesebro in a civil suit. And the suit was settled. The fake electors agreed that Trump had lost the election and that they would never be an elector for Trump again. Mm-hmm. And that was the settlement. If there were financial terms, they're confidential. And then after that settlement, Troopus and Chesebro entered into a settlement, but the terms of that settlement are confidential. Subsequent to that, the Attorney General in Wisconsin filed a criminal case against the Troopus and Chesebro, and that case is pending.
Okay. Now, during his debate with Harris, Trump said he had little to do with the insurrection, something he's claimed all along, actually, claiming he had just invited people to come to his rally. But he was involved in the fake elector scheme, right? From the beginning, right?
Well, from the beginning, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I would say that we do know that the memoranda that Chesebro wrote, 3 of them, that they were sent to the White House. There was a meeting that Troopus and Chesebro were at with Trump in the Oval Office, a bunch of other people, where it was discussed. Yeah. We know that John Eastman took Chesebro's memos and he wrote 2 memos based upon the same theories, and we know the president had those. We know that Sidney Powell, who was involved in this as well, met with the president. Mm-hmm. We know, of course, that there was a meeting with Pence and Pence's lawyer and his chief of staff where the whole scheme was discussed. So Trump was absolutely knowledgeable about the scheme. And it's one of the counts, by the way, in the district, in the Justice Department's case against Trump in Washington, D.C., the case pending in front of Judge Chupkin, where Jack Smith has filed a revised indictment trying to handle the immunity issues our Supreme Court has created for this. prosecution. That is one of the counts in the case, which is still pending. There's no way in the world I can see how Trump would have immunity for the fake electors. Now that could be an official act, but with the Supreme Court, I wouldn't put money on it.
Yeah, right. I understand that. Now, towards the end of your book, you write that 5 of the states with fake electors have pending criminal charges filed against some of the participants in this scheme. Now, is that what you were referring to before with respect to Chesebro and Lambert and so on? Sidney
I'm
Powell?
referring to the 5. There are 5 states in which there were fake electors and crimes were committed.
Okay. So what do you expect will be the outcome of those cases? Do you have any idea?
Well, in Wisconsin, I've already discussed. There was a civil case, a deal was made. I assume that a criminal prosecution against the actual fake electors will not occur, even though you can watch the crime on an 11-minute video that's available on YouTube.
Okay.
And there you have Troupis and Chesebro who've been prosecuted. In the other 4 states where Chesebro has cooperated with the prosecutors, we know in Georgia what happened is that there are 19 defendants in the Georgia RICO case. 3 of them are fake electors. At a hearing in April or May of 2023 in front of Judge McKee in Georgia, the lawyer for some of them said that at least 8 of the 16 fake electors in Georgia have entered into plea deals where they're going to testify, and I don't know the terms of the plea deals, but they weren't prosecuted. So those deals were made before the indictment was filed.
Right.
And 3 are indicted, and 1 has already pled guilty. Hall, not Hall. So that's now Wisconsin and Georgia. In Arizona, the fake electors are on trial, along with 7 other Trump campaign officials, but not Trump himself. Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Jen Ellis, not Chesebro, Mark Meadows, and so forth. So that's a case that's pending. That case was filed in 2024, I believe.
Okay.
In Nevada, there's an ongoing case, but it has procedural issues, so it's moving slowly. So in Michigan, there's a pending case against the fake electors.
Okay, so do you think these folks have learned a lesson from all of this? Do you think this is going to happen again?
Yes and no. It's shocking, actually, that some of the fake electors who are presently being prosecuted have said they would do it again in 2024.
Yeah.
So have they learned their lesson? I mean, if you watched the debate last night, and they were trying to pin Vance down to, well, did Trump actually lose the election?
Right.
And he danced around and never answered the question.
Yeah, right.
And the number of Republicans who are election deniers, I don't know, it's probably somewhere between 30 and 50% of declared elect Republicans who believe that the election was stolen. Trump said the other day, once again, that the election was stolen.
Yeah, right.
So
he won't give up. He won't give up on that. I mean, it's like it's burned into his brain or something. I don't know if he's got a brain.
He is not constituted such a way that he can admit that he lost.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he ever will. So, do you feel like we're in trouble here if Trump loses? I mean, do you look for another round of this kind of thing to happen?
I don't know exactly what their game plan is, but I
Yeah.
do know that they've already filed a slew of election lawsuits challenging various aspects of the electoral process. I wouldn't be at all surprised if you have some Trump deniers who are in the position of being responsible to certify the voting results, who refuse, and this is illegal too, who
Yeah.
refuse to certify the results
Hmm.
on the basis that they're exercising their discretion.
Yeah.
Some of the rules, one of the complications in this whole area of the law is you have national law and you have state law and you have local law. And
Hmm.
sometimes those legal systems aren't completely consistent.
Oh,
And so
okay.
in those cracks between these overlapping systems, like the question of, do you have to certify the votes? I mean, the election officials, all they are, they're saying, here's the count.
Yeah.
They're like any other person making a count. It's not discretionary. Here,
Hmm.
count. Are there 52 cards? Count the cards.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, well, it looks like it might be 52, but maybe it's 50, or
Yeah.
maybe
Right.
it's 8, maybe it's 60. You know,
Yeah.
you're counting. That's all. It's a ministerial duty. But I
Okay.
think there's a very, very real risk that there are election officials who are obligated to make the count and report on it, who will do what? Disappear, refuse to do it, raise some crazy issue about the vote. I think
Hmm.
the voting in the United States is in general honest,
Hmm.
accurate.
Hmm.
There are things that happen here and there, but nothing that affects the total outcome. However, I believe there are people who still deny that the vote in 2020 was accurate
Yeah.
and who are likely to take the same position in 2024.
Okay.
I see rocky
So
road ahead. That's what I see.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I said I see a rocky road ahead.
A rocky road ahead.
It's not a
Oh.
paved highway.
Yeah.
There may be some
Oh,
boulders in the road.
yeah. What do you hope to achieve with your book, David?
Well, one, it's information. The whole scheme and the details of it were not known until maybe a year ago when
Hmm.
Chesebro started visiting the various states.
Yeah.
More and more of the details then came out. There's still some more to be discovered. I mean, Chesebro denied that he was involved with social media. However, it's now clear that he had an account under the name Badger Pundit. And there's some interesting emails there in that account. And so there's a lot of information left to gather. But in general, we only have known in the last year how organized this was and the depth to which there were people cooperating in the commission of these crimes in these 5 states.
Okay. Now
I
I
forget
know that.
what this was now.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I forget what your question was.
Oh, that's all right. My question was, what did you hope to achieve with your book?
Oh, well, so the first is this is what happened. It's a
Right. Right.
historical book in that sense. The
Uh,
second is to alert people to the possibility what happened again. It is for fake electors to know this is a crime. And the fourth is I'm mystified as a lawyer, though I'm retired, with
mhm.
how many lawyers were involved, were sucked into representing Trump and going into court with frivolous lawsuits. Several have now been suspended. Some have
Yeah.
lost their license,
Yeah.
and some are subject to criminal action. And I think it's important, especially for young lawyers, to know that you have an ethical obligation to do a minimum amount of due diligence before you file a lawsuit. And you should avoid this opportunity of being a hero for the wrong reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's some good advice there, probably. Now, yeah, I know this isn't part of your book, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are in terms of the eventual outcome for Trump from all these cases filed against him. Do you think in the end he'll ever suffer any kind of serious punishment?
Well, we'd have to define serious. First of all, I don't think he'll ever go to jail.
Yeah.
And if people who think he will, I think they're wrong.
Yeah.
However, if he loses the election, I believe there will be a settlement of the cases, and it'll involve some admission of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange, there'll be probation, or I don't even think he'll get a house arrest, but there'll be some resolution of the cases in that sense.
Yeah.
If he wins the election, I think all the federal cases will disappear.
Mm-hmm.
The Georgia case will be left, but I think that may wither on the vine. And I assume that he winning the election will not suffer any consequences. And that's what makes it so dangerous if he wins.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to the question of what do you feel like are the implications for our country if he should win?
Well, if you listen to what he says and you believe what he says,
Yeah.
they're horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, many of his supporters kind of take the position, oh, well, that's just Trump talking.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really mean it, or
Yeah.
somehow there'll be some intervention by someone who's either smarter or more honest than he is.
Yeah.
And that will protect us. You know, in the beginning of his presidency, when he was president, there were a bunch of people saying, well, I'm going to stay in my job because I'm like a gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure that Trump doesn't do something that's horrible. Mm-hmm. It's hard to guess what he will do if he gets elected. If you believe him, there'll never be another election again. It won't be necessary.
Yeah.
At least that's what he said. He said you won't have to vote again.
Yeah. Does he think? Well, look, he's almost 80. So does he think he's never going to die? I mean, come on.
I don't know that, but I watched Vance. I don't know that Vance would be an improvement, and probably is more dangerous even.
Well, yeah. I mean, Vance takes roughly the same positions as Trump. He just does it. He's smarter and does it in a way that people can kind of buy into, because he came off last night in the debate as being, to me, as being reasonable. I was surprised, frankly, but then I started listening carefully to what he was saying and what he wasn't saying. And to me, the guy's just dangerous, and I hope he's never in the White House as president.
Well, I agree completely.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be a problem.
All right. Now, what do you think what do you think the outcome is going to be? Do you think Kamala Harris has a real shot, or what?
We have in our family what we call a survivors pool,
Mm-hmm.
and we bet on the NFL games. And
Okay.
if you bet wrongly, you're out of the pool.
Okay.
I was thrown out after the first week. I'm not a great.
You're not a great prognosticator, huh? Oh, I keep getting these emails from this sports betting site. They're putting they're putting odds against all manner of things for this election. Like for the debate last night between Harris and Walz, they were taking bets on whether a fly would land on either Walz or Vance's head and stuff like that. Uh, so it'll be interesting to see how the odds have shifted, if they have. As of last week, the odds had Kamala Harris ahead among people who were voting or betting on the election. And I think that's kind of important to keep an eye on because those people are putting their money down. And it's not like answering a question from a pollster. You're putting your money down. So
You're putting your money down, but the one thing you know for sure is the house never loses.
yeah, that's true.
I've
Okay.
never lost more than $10 at a casino in my life. However, I've tried cases where there were millions of dollars at stake
Yeah.
and waited for the jury to come back with the verdict.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I'm not a gambler,
Yeah.
and I say that having admitted that practicing law, if you're on a contingent fee basis, you are gambling.
Yeah. Were you on a contingent fee basis for some of your work or what?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of law did you practice actually?
I practiced a fair amount of international law, strangely enough. I did a lot of trial work
Okay.
and transactional work and mostly real estate, I guess.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's very interesting. Have you got anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm happy to be here and
Okay.
give you what I'm willing to be able to stick
Yeah.
my neck out and say.
All right, David. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Lean to the Left video and that you found it interesting and informative. Please visit on a regular basis and check out our interviews with guests on topics that focus on progressive politics and the important social issues of our time. Now, our interview shows stream on Mondays with special episodes on Thursdays. And you can check out upcoming shows, guests, and topics at podcast.leantotheleft.net. Subscribe to our audio version there and to our video shows here at YouTube. And follow us on social media. Facebook at Bob Gaddy and the Lean to the Left podcast. Now, it's two. Bob Gaddy has one Facebook page, and the Lean to the Left podcast is a second Facebook page. Twitter at Lean to the Left 1, Instagram at Lean to the Left 1, TikTok at Lean to the Left, LinkedIn at Bob Gaddy, and YouTube at Lean to the Left. Now, I hope you'll support Lean to the Left as well so we can keep things going. Just click on the Donate tab at the top of the leantotheleft.net homepage and contribute by buying me a cup of coffee. That'll really help and would be much, much, much appreciated. Now, this is Bob Gaddy signing off for Lean to the Left. Thanks for sharing your time with us.